We should be good.
We're streaming now. So good. So good.
Good, how are you?
Adam, do we not have a printed copy of the agenda?
Of the agenda. Betsy, do you have the agenda?
It's okay if you don't. It's okay if you don't. Okay. Okay, perfect. I like to craft things off.
I know exactly what you're doing.
Yes, that'd be great. Yes, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you.
You see the picture? You see the picture I sent?
I saw it. I saw it. That's
What do you mind up? What do you mind up in Mount Pleasant?
It's good.
I know, that's exactly what she said.
Right.
Yeah.
It's 7 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock.
I just set that
All right, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call this Board of Education meeting to order. And start with the stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is comments, citizens' comments. You want me to pause for a minute? If you don't mind. Yeah, if you don't mind. Yep.
So Adam, while we wait, I've seen, now Michelle has a mask on, you had on one last time. Where did we find one of those Williamston masks?
It's an army mask. Oh, that.
No, yeah, you had that one on last time, right?
I think they bought them for all the staff. Kelly had bought them for all the staff.
Oh,
Yeah,
you had one last time.
There.
Did I?
I think so.
She probably got him up at the studio shop because he has tons of
He's
Williams.
got some cool ones.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where they bought them from, but they had bought them for all the staff.
It's not the general.
Yeah, I'll leave on this, sir.
Roll the camera.
Oh, it's not back
Are
up
they still
yet?
on hold?
I don't know what's done something.
Yeah, there's a delay. We're gonna need to close that door.
How long?
There's more than a few.
thought we were off.
I don't know.
If you need any other stuff, just let me know. You covered.
All right. Having no citizens' comments, we will move to celebrations. I'll turn it.
Jeff, do you have the link to the, bring up the webpage?
Oh, is it on the desktop?
Usually. Celebrations website.
There we go.
And remember, you can click on the stories as I go, although most of them don't have a lot of extra detail. So we'll start with celebrations this evening. First, want to wish Dr. Cook a early happy birthday.
Yeah.
So it's tomorrow. So as far as celebrations involving the district, we have 2 awards that the district was notified of recently. The first is our 3rd consecutive College Success Award, which in a nutshell recognizes the district for being successful in putting students into the university setting and then keeping them there. So we've earned that now 3 years in a row, and it's obviously a K-12 award, just like all our other recognitions, but it is another indicator that we're doing positive work in terms of preparing our students for moving on to studies at the university. And then every year, the school evaluation site niche, depending on how you pronounce that, comes out with a list of the best school districts in Michigan. And we pretty much always kind of fall in around the same relative area. So this year, we were ranked 28th out of 555 evaluated districts in the state of Michigan, and received an overall rating of an A. So those 2 stories are up on the website, and we sent those out on the Buzz update on Friday as well. So some celebrations for our staff and community members and parents. And then lastly, just like at our last meeting, I just want to commend our staff and our parents for the hard work that's been put into getting our students back into school over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, it's been a substantial effort, but it's truly been a team effort. Parents have been on board with making sure their children understand the safety protocol and know what to do when they arrive at school, and open communication with the buildings. So a lot of positives there. We know there's a lot that's outside of our control and things that we might not be able to control moving forward, but I do want to commend everybody, both parents, students, and our staff for the excellent work that they put into our hybrid model thus far. So that is celebrations for this evening. Pending any questions?
Any questions of Adam? Okay. That brings us to education update, and this evening we have Paige Paulson to give an update. Paige?
Yeah, thanks. Hold up there.
I don't know why I did that. Okay, there we go.
Perfect, it's there. Thank you. And thanks for allowing me a few minutes just to go over our fall recap for sports. If you want to go ahead and do the next one. Girls cross country, we had 11 girls go out. We finished 5th conference and had 3 regional qualifiers. Boys, we had 6, some smaller than years past. We had a couple due to COVID and then an injury, which we obviously weren't anticipating, so the numbers were a little lower than normal. But they also were 5th in our conference. We had 3 regional qualifiers as well. We had a state qualifier, and his place landed him as an academic all-state runner, and he was also an all-league performer. Girls golf, we had a influx of numbers this year, which we were excited for, but not anticipating just due to the lack of numbers previous, so which was a good thing. And planning for more to benefit the girls next year for that. 4 girls qualified for regionals and 3 were able to attend, which was a great experience for us. 2 of those were freshmen, which bode well for us going forward. Tennis, 19 kids out this year. We were back-to-back regional champions, which was an excellent for our boys. And we did, this year, tennis was done a little bit different just due to the precautions we had to do with COVID. So there wasn't an individual tournament and team tournament going on at the same time. There was just a team tournament, and we were the only public school to win a first-round competition. So we showed very well. We had a 4th place conference finish. We made the all-academic team all-state, and we had 9 scholar athletes and 9 players with conference recognition. Boys soccer, 32 kids between varsity and JV. We were district champs, regional champions, and state semifinals. We finished 4th in our conference, which says we have a really good conference. To accomplish what we did and only finish 4th in our conference. And then we had 11 players receiving postseason awards. Volleyball, 37 girls went out across 3 teams. We made it to the district championship, lost to a very good Lansing Catholic team. We were team academic all state. We had 4 players with postseason recognition, and we finished 4th in our conference. Football, 66 kids between the 2 teams. 2nd place conference finish to Mason, who was very tough. Division 3 team, or Division 3 team, sorry. 2nd place conference finish for them, district championship finalists, and that still rings true. We still have a possibility of playing after this 3-week pause. 14 all-league honors, and certainly after the season completed and district and regional honors come out, we have more projected stuff. Sideline here, we had 9 girls out cheer this fall. Girls swimming dive. We had 17 girls out. 3rd place conference finish. We were the conference meet champions. We had 1 state qualifier, which was to be conducted this weekend, and obviously that's on hold. And that will more than likely be swim as soon as the restrictions are lifted as being an indoor sport. More awards to come. Middle school sports were kicked off a little bit later this year, but we were able to get in girls volleyball and cross country, boys and girls. We had about 45, started with 45, some switched over to volleyball when it took place, and we ended roughly with about 30 kids. Volleyball had 38 girls, and boys basketball, which had just started and was scheduled to play this week, had 38 boys. Winter sports, last week just kicked off the first round of practices with girls basketball going on. Today was supposed to be wrestling and boys basketball. Boys swim and dive would begin the following week, which would be the 23rd. Girls basketball, we have 3 teams, 32 girls total. Competitive cheer. We are working on numbers. As you guys are aware of, or maybe not, we had to cut this program short last year. We're looking on a way to build on our numbers at the lower level to sustain a program. So looking something we can do through the middle school so that we can sustain our numbers and keep a program. Overall, for high school, for fall sports, we had 209 athletes participate in fall, which is actually a great number, given the circumstances and everything going on in kids' lives this year. Just a few things that we've done this year. We implemented a new system for volunteer coaches. All coaches were required to be fingerprinted. It's added level protection for our students, and this was implemented in the fall. I coordinate with our human resources to make sure that they have the live scan completed from where they got their fingerprints. And that is done on every volunteer coach that is on staff for high school middle school teams. athletic registration fees. Our online registration, we're able to track paid and unpaid, waived and reduced payments. We currently cross-reference fall with winter to make sure there's no missed fees or restructuring that we need to do due to COVID. And in the fall, just as the numbers this morning for high school, we were 90% of paid fall participants, which is a great number. And the last 10 were coordinated with coaches and working on plans for those families to meet those payments.
It's great.
So Paige, and this might be a question for you, or it might be a question for you, Adam. I know that there's been some concerns about the facilities for tennis. Where are we at with that in regards to the future and the ability to continue to play on the facilities that we have?
So I'm not going to get into a lot of detail this evening, but we have a short and a long-term concept that we put together, and that will end up going to finance. We won't be able to do anything this winter, just because of the fact that it's winter. But we do have a concept that we'll bring forward to the finance committee, and I guess more information to come on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Paige? Jeff? None?
Got mine all out on Friday.
Thanks, Paige. It's great.
Thank you, Paige.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Okay,
Paige.
good night.
Have a nice night.
All right, moving on to superintendent's report.
So a couple things. First is upcoming events. So or upcoming presentation and discussion items, I should say. So on the 7th of December, like every month, we'll take a look at our extended COVID-19 learning plan. There'll be a consideration of summer tax resolution, and Dr. Cook will have a presentation on the new state letter grade accountability system, which is about a year behind, but we finally have the results now, so we'll be presenting those to you on the 7th. And then moving into January on the 11th, that's the annual board organizational meeting. As you probably saw today, we have booked an MASB consultant for the 21st of January for a 3-hour block that evening. The topics for that are customizable, and so I will kind of put that to the side for the moment as the board can determine what focus areas you would like to pursue during that evening. But they can do a little of different things, just depending on, again, what your focus areas are for that meeting. And then secondly, last meeting, the board had a request to show a demonstration of the technology that we have invested in for the middle and high school. So we have a demo video, Jeff, that is on the laptop. Due to the internet outage and the power situation here, it's caused kind of havoc with a lot of our systems today. So we're trying to make the presentation and the sound as good as possible this evening, but we're still having some issues. So hopefully we're able to hear this adequately to give you an idea of what that system might look like at the secondary buildings. So it's at WM. There you go.
I'm making it so that everybody can see this.
Oh, yeah.
Live.
Good
Good afternoon, or whenever you're watching this. This is our just little demo of what our streaming technology is going to look like. So right now we're on the typical webcam that the teachers are using. I'm also currently using a lapel mic that we bought, so this allows the teacher to move around the room. Now, the question you might be asking yourself is, when the teacher's moving around the room, how will we see them? This is what we are now currently using. So we have a 180-degree panoramic camera, which right now is at the front of the room, and we have some students in here, wave students, which are some of your favorite teachers. And so as I move around the room, you can clearly, hopefully you are hearing me very clear in all the tests that we've done. It doesn't matter where you're at in the classroom, you can hear the teacher. Now the problem with this is if I were to ask a question, so I'd say, hey, Dr. Dell, what's 2 plus 2? And my guess is that you could not hear Dr. Dell speaking because of the lapel mic. And so we also are trying to find solutions to that. So right now, what you should be hearing, they have slightly adjusted the sound in the front of the room and a raised speaker, which you can pick up sound at 180 degree reduction. So now all it has not come out the same question, not plus 2 plus 2. Mr. Almer, 2 plus 2 is 4. You can hear them in the back of the room. The sound may not be as crystal clear as the helmet, but it allows to have a back discussion. Ms. D, what do you think? Is 2 plus 2 4?
I concur. Yeah, I agree.
Numbers of community in history, they teach numbers along with, you know what that is? Yes, I do, but my parents said never use 4-letter words, and math is a 4-letter word, so I will abstain from answering this question, Mr. Almer, thank you. And so this way is kind of the angle towards the front, so this way we're talking about here, history topic.
Ooh, favorite. Okay, Civil War and President Lincoln's election in 1860.
Oh, what do you think about that, Mr. Richards?
Ooh, I would have to go with the relatively 80s election. Ooh, that's too many numbers, right? Yeah, there's all sorts of like shenanigans going on voting that. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And if it's a change of thought, he's probably me. I don't have any idea of being a mathematized person. I would like to discuss the idea of the 4-letter math. And so that is how we could bring students into the classroom and have a class discussion with the microphone during the lecture. Okay, enjoy our demo.
So kind of an opportunity to see the 180-degree panoramic camera, and then also to look at some of the sound pieces that they've been investigating. And the idea, of course, is if you're sitting at home as a student, you're right there in your classroom, and then with that enhanced audio, you're able to hear what your classmates are saying, whether they're working in a small group or whether the teacher asks a question and they respond. So a lot of work has gone into that. The audio is pretty impressive. It's a little distorted, obviously, with playing through multiple sound systems here in the room, but they've done an excellent job, and I think that's about as good as you're going to see anywhere in terms of being able to virtually move students into that classroom environment from basically anywhere they happen to be outside of the building. So are there any questions I can address on upcoming events or the demonstration?
One question on the demonstration, Adam. When the view that we saw was looking out at the classroom, but if the teacher is at the board, working on the board, showing people in the classroom things on the board, how are the people at home supposed to see that?
So they can toggle between their webcam that they have in their room, and then they can switch back to their panoramic camera. So you saw Mr. Armour at the beginning when he was introducing it, and then he switched back to the panoramic camera. So they'll have double monitors, and they're able to manipulate back and forth between the two views.
So they'll be able to have a camera that's on the board itself if they're using the whiteboard?
If that's what they choose to do. There's other technologies that can be used instead of that. So they'll have a lot of flexibility in terms of what they prefer.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ed. Moving into board committee reports, Chris?
We had a meeting on November 9th for our board goals and superintendent evaluation subcommittee. We examined kind of where we were at. This committee had not met. Usually at this point in time, we'd be working on the superintendent evaluation and actually putting together the completion of his evaluation as we moved through November into December. But with Adam being out of the district and with things being what they were, that was put on hold. So that being said, we talked about, I'm going to talk about the evaluation piece first, and then I'll go back to the goals. On the evaluation piece, our plan is to follow a very similar timeline as we had last year in the fall, but it's going to be in the spring. We have to have everything into the state by the end of June. So our goal is, and what we are planning to do is deconstruct that. Adam will start to present to us on the evaluatory areas. He will be presenting to us starting in April, later in April, and then going into May, allowing for us then to be able to ask questions along the way, ask any final questions, and then evaluate him right at the end of May, early June, with enough time for items to get back and then get turned in on time. The evaluation tool has not changed. So for those of you that, I think everybody on the board right now has done that at least once. So it has not changed. We'll use the same tool. The only thing that might change is some of the factors at the very bottom that are based on state numbers. That piece might change, but we don't know yet what that's going to be. So as those numbers come in, we'll put those into the evaluation itself. But otherwise, the suggestion of the subcommittee is to continue on with the evaluation as stated, but we're moving it into, as I said, the spring instead of the fall. And it will be very similar to what we did in Adam's first year, where we'll end up doing 2 evaluations next year. So we'll have one in the spring, and then we'll have one in the fall to get back on the cycle. Because in talking with Adam, he does prefer the January to December evaluation period, which makes sense. I think it's easy. It's better for us as well. We also spoke about the board goals, and basically, as we move into the new year, we're going to have some. We'll bring this back to the board, but for pretty much everyone agreed that many of the goals that are currently on there are goals that need to continue. There may be some other goals we may want to consider as a board. But at this point, many of the goals, except for the finance one that's going to go back to finance committee to review, the other ones are things that are important for the district anyways, and that are continue to be important. So as a board, as a subcommittee, we did feel that many of those goals are going to move forward, but we're going to bring that back to the full board in January. And that's it.
Excellent. Any questions with Chris? Thanks, Chris. Sarah, I don't know if you really don't have anything to report other than you've got a meeting, correct?
We have an upcoming meeting, but it's changed from in-person to Zoom due to the current MGHHS regulations. So it will be on Zoom Thursday.
Zoom on Thursday, okay. Next, we'll move into discussion items. The first item is staff leave request.
There are 2 additional leaves, or 1 additional leave, I'm sorry, and there's a memo of support there. Similar process that we followed in other instances.
Okay, any questions on the staff leave request? Next is, we added this on for discussion, the return to remote instruction, kind of a decision-making protocol. Do you want to say anything on that? Do you want me to kind of explain it, or?
Oh, go ahead, I can jump in if you
Okay.
need to.
So, and I had talked to some of you about this last week, so we have a situation we want to make sure we're clear on. Right now, we have a extended COVID-19 learning plan, and certainly that plan remains very good with regard to having the ability within the plan to react to the changing circumstances and changing environment that we have, and also changing dynamics and conditions. And so with that plan, certainly it gives Adam the authority that on his own, he has the ability, for lack of a better term, call an audible, and change things if we need to go to 100% virtual based on if we don't have the proper staff, if we have a high number of cases, for whatever reason, Adam has the ability, and that's what's nice about the plan, is we all approved a plan that already had the proper safety measures built in, that that we would be able to react. And so Adam has the ability to do that. And I think we're all comfortable with that. I don't know how we would do it any other way, because for at 5:30 in the morning when a decision has to be made, we're not going to pull together a call on that. That's got to be Adam. I think the question comes into then if he has to make that decision that we move to a different learning environment, and then certainly there's some time frames around that. At what point do we resume going back to maybe, if it's going from face-to-face to virtual, when do we come back face-to-face? And we wanted to have some thought about, is that just solely his decision to make that and decide to do it, or should that be a board decision? In talking, in kind of thinking about this and talking to Adam and then a few of you, what I would maybe think would make sense, and again, this is a topic of discussion for tonight, but I'll just throw out that maybe the best way to balance, to be able to be nimble, but also not leave 100% of the burden on Adam, is that we appoint either an executive committee, or if we just have the president and the vice president and Adam, the three of them jump on the phone and they make they have the authority to make the decision. But I wasn't comfortable, and I think Adam has concern, I want to speak for Adam, about if we were to actually have it relying to be a full board meeting, that could become, or a full board decision that could become cumbersome and lengthy and not nimble enough. But if we had a representation of the board via president, vice suggestion, and Adam to collaborate, vice president to reach out, talk to other board members, get their feeling, and then empower the three of them to make that decision. So that's kind of what we're thinking on this. Adam, is there anything you would like to add to that?
I think the biggest piece is, I mean, I know that I continue to have the authority to make a short-term decision based on the circumstances that we have to respond to quickly, but how long in duration in a COVID environment do I have that authority? So I think that's what we're trying to kind of hone in on today. If I cancel, or if I move us back to remote instruction for a 2-week period, because it's a 14-day quarantine for a number of our staff, do I have the authority to bring them back in week 3 or maintain another week where they're out? I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios. So I'm trying to decide, we're trying to, I guess, coalesce around this idea of what is the duration of that authority, and when does it need to go back to the board? There's been a number of other districts that have encountered this, and I want to kind of be out in front of it. So,
What would your recommendation be? What would you feel most comfortable with?
well, I feel right now like I probably need the authority to make a decision out at least 2 weeks, because again, with the 14-day quarantine, I think that's most likely going to be the immediate response. But then you get into scenarios, and again, there's a million hypotheticals, but if we're a week away from like a break, right, and it's 2 weeks and then there's 1 week to break, like, do I have the authority to just say, hey, it's not really worth it at this point, we'll just continue on virtual for 1 more week and hit a break and then reset and then come back? I mean, like those types of scenarios, like, can I make that decision? Or do we need to have board action to extend it past that 14-day piece?
So during my history on the board, we've really never gone 3 weeks without having a meeting. And maybe as we're looking at the rest of the year, so example, we have a meeting today, we have a meeting on the 7th. Then we would be out of school basically, and then we come back. We may want to, just as a board, adjust our calendar and have our board calendar where we're meeting every 2 weeks. I mean, there's so many things that are going on. To have a meeting every 2 weeks during this COVID environment, kind of made that recommendation back in June that we would have done it this summer. It just provides some leeway. Or do we call a special meeting? If that's needed. But I mean, 2 weeks is, to me, is fine. And I wouldn't have a problem with 3 either.
I think it just depends on how the calendar falls. So if, we're coming to the end of that 14-day period, and, the meeting's like on the 13th day, I mean, again, just depending on when the decision's made and how our board meeting calendar falls. And one of the things we want to make sure is that we're giving parents enough time to respond for childcare and other contingencies. So, I would just be hesitant to wait until the last moment, unless it's, obviously an immediate emergency, right? We could have, like today, we almost had a power outage situation, an internet outage, snow days. I mean, those things happen. But if we have a good feeling where you might have to go back for 3 weeks, I wouldn't want to wait to the last second to do that. And maybe it's unavoidable, but.
Well, I would say, I don't have a problem. I would not want the authority just to come down to 3 people if it was anything longer. I would want more of the Ingham County Health Department to be giving, and I think that's kind of already in that if the Ingham County, if you report contact tracing and the Ingham County says these 5 people have to quarantine and 3 are teachers, and it's like, well, we have no staff, we have to close down, then it's kind of, made for Ingham County. So, I don't have a problem with giving that 14-day and anything after 14 days, though I think I would want it to come to a board if we wanted an extended period.
We could always call a special meeting.
Yeah, we could, I didn't want it to be like every, gotta call, special meeting, but Jeff's right, we do meet every 2 weeks anyways normally,
Would we have to
so.
have 2 meetings, would we have to follow a discussion meeting and then wait and have an action meeting later?
I think that's up to you.
Yeah, okay.
But would we have to put that on the meeting agenda immediate, so we're not setting aside the rules on every special meeting? Is there a way to work that into the meeting of a discussion and
At the special meeting. you
At that
make
meeting.
that decision.
Yeah, I think there's other boards that are going through that where they have to make a decision at that meeting. In fact, I think there's another one in the area this evening about that same topic. So, I mean, as long as the board's comfortable with that, I think we can definitely do that.
So there's a policy meeting on Thursday. Could we add an item to that agenda that we have a COVID emergency response, even if it's a 2-sentence policy that we work on that basically says, in a board meeting, when we're dealing with COVID, the board has the ability to, we as a board say that we're going to do that, and then we have a policy that basically says that with COVID response, we can vote on that day. And if it's a part of board policy, that's not setting aside the rules anymore.
Yeah, we can amend the policy that focuses on, I guess, your standby, setting aside the rules items potentially. I want to defer to Sarah on that as the chair, but
Sarah,
it's an option.
any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about it more.
I'm sorry, can you hear you?
I'd like to see it in policy meeting.
But are you, okay, but with regard to coming back to the full board after like has a 2 or 3 week authority and then it.
I'm fine with that. But I think it does make sense to bring it to policy so we're not having to set aside the rules.
Yeah, sure. So the framework, what I'm hearing is that we're comfortable with that and having authority for up to 3 weeks. And then within that 3-week period, there would be, the intent would be to have a special meeting in which the board would discuss and then collectively make a decision. And we will look to amend policy so that we can do that without having to go through a process of second. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, we just have some COVID response within that.
Would that get you what you needed, and would you be comfortable with that?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So is that COVID response plan only for Adam to initiate then with the team? Or would it be vice versa? Could the team initiate it with Adam?
Who's the team?
Oh, well, whoever you get, the vice president and the president.
No, the team idea is gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I just want to recap then, just to make sure we're on the same page with this. So do I have the authority for a 2-week, 14-day decision or a 3-week?
I'd say up to 21 days.
And obviously we can revisit this.
I think
again for
21.
policy, but just in case something happens between
Mhm.
now and
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah.
No,
I
I
mean,
think
take
20.
into consideration weekends. 14 days can be 3 weeks.
All right, so 21 days. And then we will take either an amend a policy that already exists or put some type of new COVID rapid response policy outlined together. Then we'll go to policy on Thursday.
Now, can we discuss, well, oh yeah, that's on Thursday, but that wouldn't be for 2 more weeks. Is that gonna? Till the next board meeting. I just wanted to go to the next board meeting for discussion and then have to go another 2 weeks.
Well, you might have to set aside the rules at a board meeting to approve the policy that says you don't have to set aside the rules every time. I mean, I don't know, there's different options, but if it passed policy on Thursday, it would come to the board on the 7th if we held the current meeting schedule.
Yeah. Okay.
So can I get into the details of the snow day procedure policy, can I ask questions about this particular thing?
So, yeah, so let's go into that. So the next, any last comments on the?
So are we past the
Okay,
extended
return to-
Is that the extended COVID plan, or we haven't even?
No,
got that
we're
yet?
not, I'm just making sure everybody's good. We've got an understanding of return to remote instruction decision, what we're gonna do there with that decision-making protocol. Now we'll move on to the next item, which is the 2021 snow day process. And Adam has included a memorandum in there on what he is proposing that process look like going forward. And so if there's questions, Sarah?
I'll let Adam talk first and then he might answer them, the ones I have.
Yeah, in summary, we have to make a decision on what we're going to do with snow days. And so when we say snow days, we're talking about the traditional day where, I'm out driving around or our maintenance team's out driving around at whatever time in the morning and the roads look questionable and we end up not having school that day because it's not safe to transport students on buses and it's not safe to have teenage drivers drive themselves into the district. So, and those are really the only two reasons why we ever cancel school on a day where there's extreme weather. So the decision needs to be made on this year, given the uniqueness of our instruction in terms of how we're going to handle that scenario. And so what I put in your packet is a proposal in terms of one option that we could pursue. And so the general concept here is that because we have the capability to teach remotely, that we not call school on days solely due to road conditions, again, that would affect buses and teenage drivers, and that we revert to remote instruction instead on those occasions. It also outlines some other instances where school might be canceled, both remote and in person. And so it lists a few of those scenarios, of which we came close to having today, in the instance of power and internet outage. So in a nutshell, that's the proposal. It's designed to make sure that we're able to provide a continuous stream of instruction to our students to the extent that we can using our new remote instruction resources, and then so that we can tell our stakeholders at the end of the year that we have adequately covered the curriculum for their children. So I guess at this point I'll take any questions that the board might have.
Well, you say teenage drivers and buses on the roads. So teachers, some of which drive excessive miles to get here. Is it going to be the same way as it has been before? I mean, because we're taking into account, teachers driving on the roads and having to come in as well, or are we going to let them teach from remote, meaning not here in the school? Because we told teachers we want them to teach here.
Number 5.
Yeah, so point 5 addresses the expectations for teachers, and the idea is to give them as much flexibility as possible,
Okay.
While still maintaining that consistent instruction and learning opportunity for students.
So the expectation for them is we got a snowstorm possibly coming, take computer home, laptop home.
Well, that kind of went on my kind of question was, we were really wanting the teachers to be in class on the remote side. So now that they have their setup at the classroom to kind of tell them that they, should teach from home. But are we doing this because we have so many other days that we might need to take because the technology in states were down where we might use more than 6 in a day? So we're using snow days to kind of make up other days that we may be using that 6 days for?
Yeah, I mean, I want to give teachers the flexibility in these particular instances. At least, again, it's a proposal, but understanding there can be extenuating circumstances for them, and the important thing is that students have the opportunity to learn, in my opinion. And so, whether that's in these instances, it's a contingency plan. Like, for example, today we told teachers to go home that were teaching remotely because the internet was not on at 8 o'clock this morning. So obviously the preference is always to have them in the classroom that provides that consistent and more professional educational setting. But, you know, I've had times where I was a teacher here and I literally could not get my car out of the driveway. When I tried, I just couldn't do it. And instead of just having no instruction, you know, I'd rather provide students that instruction if I could do it from home. So that was the first part. And then Julie, you had a second question. Oh, about the waiver.
Well, it was,
the
we
days.
we only
Yeah.
get 6 a year, right? So we may be losing 3 to technology piece has nothing to do with snow.
Well,
to
that-
where we have
yeah.
to make some, are we using it kind of?
Right, so that's kind of the trade-off here. So if we can provide instruction on the days where we can teach remotely, that'll offset some potential days where we might not be able to provide instruction due to a variety of different issues. Again, the internet and the power are probably the two most concerning, but we could also have some situations where the weather is just so poor that, or lasts so long, that we might not be able to sustain instruction in those types of scenarios. And you think back to a couple of years ago when we had, you know, state emergency due to weather, and you know, it might not be sustainable in those instances. So we want to keep some flexibility in this. What it's trying to avoid is just a default response when it's 5:30 in the morning, and you know, we're calling school, but the roads might be good to go by 9. You know, are we really taking away that entire day of instruction? As far as the waivers go, so this year is obviously unique.
Adam, I got a question with what you said.
Yeah.
So because we have in-person learning, we have a morning cohort that is at the elementary schools, but in the afternoon, at high school, middle school, and an elementary school. And you said, you know, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, the roads are fine. Could you just, that
Cancel
first
morning.
half, just the morning be canceled, and then the afternoon, everything's back to normal? And then how would they count, how does it count with that?
Well, it's possible, but again, we never really know how the day is going to play out in a lot of cases, right? I mean, the roads could be cleared in town by 9, and the back roads, they're not, you know. So I think if we make a decision earlier enough and get the word out, you know, and that allows teachers time to respond. And again, they have the option to come in. If the road's clear and it's easier for them to come in later on in the day and do their second cohort from the classroom, it's still remote, but they would have that flexibility. So back to the waiver. So this year is a little unique. So we have 6 forgiven days, but it's a little bit misleading in that the seat time waivers that we have for the year are also waived. So the end state that I think we need to focus on is that by the end of the year, we need to be able to have adequately covered the curriculum. That's the defined end state. It's not so much about hours and days this year as it is when we get to the end of the school year, have we adequately covered the curriculum? And obviously every day of school, every day of instruction we miss is one less opportunity we have to do that. So there is a hypothetical where, you know, we're extending the year if we haven't adequately covered the curriculum. And so this is another means to try to avoid that scenario.
So Adam, if there is a snow day, I'm going to quote unquote snow day, but kids are going to continue to learn online remotely, that will not count for one of the 6?
That would not.
Okay.
But again, the 6 days is kind of I mean, it's there, but it's not. I mean, there's a lot of inconsistencies in terms of how things are getting equated this year that we haven't dealt with in previous years. But like I said, the bottom line, the benchmark for this year is, have we adequately taught the curriculum? And again, every day that we can do that is a plus. And like I said, we need to make a decision on it. So whether it's this, whether it's status quo, or whether it's something else, we need to coalesce around a decision on how we're going to handle this.
I mean, for me, I think as long as there is that flexibility for a teacher to be able to move from in-person to remote and being able to still offer the same education, I mean, it's a great opportunity for the kids to continue their learning.
The group that we think, what we know is this is going to be most challenging for currently is our in-person elementary teachers. And so what we've done is we're kind of pushing that back to our teachers and our principals at the elementary buildings to have conversations around what are reasonable expectations for teachers on those days. Because the point's not to make things unrealistic or unnecessarily stressful. It's we think there's a middle ground there where we can provide that instruction to students and not cause teachers to have to stay up all night preparing for an unknown event the next day. So, but again, all those pieces are kind of contingent on the way we want to go forward with this. They'll take some baby steps in coming up with some of those answers in the meantime, because some of them are connected to our already required 24-hour contingency. So, for example, if something happens at 5:30 in the morning and we can't do in-person instruction, not because of the weather, but just some other reason, what's that emergency plan that we have in place? So those plans might also be applicable to a quote-unquote snow day scenario. So long story short, we're kind of pushing it back to the buildings to come up with what those expectations would be, and then of course communicate that out to parents and students, pending your approval of the concept, of course.
So Adam, those days of anticipation of waking up at 5 a.m. hoping that my district is closed for the day is over. The one day where your kid wakes up at 5.
Well, those days are long gone for me, so I don't. The bottom line is one of the things about snow days that I think people ought, I think justifiably find as a positive is the idea you wake up, it's snowing out, you can go sledding on the hill, you can go outside and play. And those things are all still possible, especially for elementary students. I mean, they're not going to be stuck behind a computer for 8 hours. So there'll be a lot of opportunities to go out and enjoy the weather, but still come in and have your hot chocolate and participate perhaps in an asynchronous lesson. So you're getting some educational benefit out of that day in addition to enjoying the snow. So we're not looking to steal the fun of a snow day from students, but again, I think there's still an opportunity to provide some instructional opportunity for them.
So if I'm an AM learner, either remote or face-to-face, I still need to log in at 8:30 in the morning. If I don't log in, then your parent needs to call and excuse you through typical day, or else you're considered absent. And so if I'm a PM cohort, I have to log in the afternoon, correct?
Well, I don't want to, so I'm avoiding kind of managing those details, and I really want to empower teachers and principals to come up with what those expectations are that are feasible for them. So I'm purposefully avoiding getting too far into the weeds on that.
Okay, but there still will be some synchronous times and asynchronous times, no matter if you are considered a remote student or a face-to-face student.
Right now, I would not go as far as to say for sure there would be synchronous opportunities. If you're an in-person elementary teacher at this point, that might end up being that way. But again, those conversations need to be had at the building level and those expectations determined and then communicated. So I don't want to guarantee something tonight that hasn't been addressed and discussed adequately at the building level.
Because the plan does say synchronous and or asynchronous, so.
Right, and there's a distinction. So again, if you're set up with the demonstration we just saw earlier, and your teacher's perhaps at school, or even if they're not, right, there's more capability perhaps at the secondary, or even if you're a full remote teacher, the in-person currently with their current setup, and obviously it's subject to change as the year goes on, but this is going to be most challenging for our in-person elementary teachers. And so I want to be mindful of creating realistic expectations. And again, I'd prefer that those conversations be had between the principal and the teachers, and they can come up with agreements on what is realistic and what will work for them.
Well, I think it's good that you're empowering them to make the decision, because if you are an in-person teacher, you could make a plan that has all of your students still synchronous, maybe if you wanted to in the morning, covering a little bit of your time and, have everybody there. And I'm assuming if I think of snow day at school, there's going to be learning things, but probably some more fun learning things that you're going to be doing during those times, just
Well,
kind of
there's a lot of possibilities in terms
Yeah.
of what you can integrate into a day.
Mhm.
Students have those, those special weather occasions for them.
It's just snow days are gone for adults forever. Because now we've all been working from home, so snow doesn't matter to our employers anymore. It used to be like, I can't come to work, my kids are home, and they're like, you've been doing that for 8 months, you're gonna continue working.
Any other questions?
Mhm.
I commend you. Good thinking.
Mhm.
Good concept. Thank you. Okay, next is probationary teacher recommendations.
So this evening we have a mid-year hire probationary teacher recommendations from across the district. I fully support the recommendations of the principals in each instance. An excellent group of educators that we've been able to hire mid-year over the last couple of years, which is really amazing considering that mid-year hires can often be extremely challenging. But we found some just phenomenal people and have made immediate and powerful contributions to the district thus far during their tenure.
Any questions from the board? Okay. To get us through the discussion items, we'll move into the action items for this evening. The first, under routine, is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held on November 2nd and the special meeting held on November 4th. As presented, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
I'll
I
second.
have a motion from Jeff and a second from Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. That's all for routine. Now we'll move into separate action items. The first here is to reaffirm the extended COVID-19 learning plan. And the intent was when the work went into the extended learning plan, and we had, much discussion about it. Part of that plan is that the board to reaffirm the plan each month. So the idea here is that as a board to reaffirm the plan that is in place. The plan that is in place, as mentioned earlier, remains fluid with regard to the authority that it grants Adam and the administration to be able to react to changing circumstances. And to be able to make sure that decisions are made to keep both students and staff safe, but yet also balance the importance of having the different teaching methodologies in place at the different levels. So this is just a routine reaffirming our decision on the plan. However, I'm hearing that there's some concerns, so before we go into it, ask for a motion, I will open this up for some discussion before we go into that motion.
I do have some concerns. In response to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services that changes to implement the 3-week pause and the requirement for high school populations to close for 3 weeks, I've got strong concerns to our district moving forward with continuing in-person learning at this point. In looking at the COVID-19 dashboard, Williamston, as of today, has a case rate of 1,631. We are higher than Hazlitt, Okemos, Mason, Weberville, and others except for East Lansing and Lansing. This means that if you were to have 10 people from our area code and 10 people from, let's say, Okemos area code, that the possibility of a person with COVID-19 is much higher based on the size and scope of the cases that have actually been in our community to date. To date, we currently have 161 to 200 current cases, which has continued to rise even from the end of last week. The rise in cases of COVID-19 is alarming, and with the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday and some families choosing to gather, the concern for further spread, both in individual homes and in our elementary and to our teachers, is of great concern to me. On top of this, the state health department has made it clear that unless there is a critical need for people to be in a workplace, that they should be working from home. and not traveling so that the case levels decrease throughout Michigan. We are seeing more and more schools taking the decision to go back fully online. Schools in our own area that have made the choice to date include Okemos, East Lansing, Holt, DeWitt, Grand Ledge, Charlotte, Weberville, East Lansing, Hazlitt, St. John's, Leslie, the Wilson Talent Center, and even tonight, Mason is going virtual until January. What makes Williamston different when cases in our own community continue to rise, placing our students and staff at risk? Also, continuing to offer in-person classes at this time flies in the face of the mandate that puts families that have chosen in-person learning in a place where they have no choices available to them. The plan that was offered at the elementary level was based on a permanent decision, and classes were adjusted as such. However, now, if families want to pull their child from being in person, they have no choice. But they have to continue to send their kids to school, even if they feel that that's not where they should be. All of us on the board agree that in-person learning is best for all concerned. However, I feel that to support the decrease in cases in our community and throughout the county, we should transition back to online learning for at least the next 3 weeks, just as high schools across Michigan have been mandated to do. This also would be in alignment with what the Michigan Education Association has encouraged as well.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so I'm kind of the opposite of that. I agree with Governor Whitmer and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. I think she answered that question, both the state, the doctor that I can't remember how she pronounced, she calls her Dr. J, so I'm gonna say Dr. J. They discussed about the things not only economically, but statistically, that K through 8 is not a risk at this point from the data. So, I always look at my job as I don't know what I don't know, and I don't get paid to know that. So I'm looking at them to tell us that information. And from the last thing I knew with Linda Vale at Ingham County is if we're following the matrix and we're following the roadmap, then we're safe to remain open. And, I just don't want to be the determiner for somebody's response. If somebody wants to send their child to school, I do agree, Chris. If you want to change your mind, you should be able to. And I think you can change we may say we don't want you to, but if you're in our school system and the state law states that you have to offer virtual learning, I think if somebody walked into the office and had that conversation, I think we would be mandated to find a place for them. If somebody really truly wants to change from in-person to virtual for a 3-week period or 6, or says, we're not good with this right now, whatever.
In speaking with Adam, I don't believe that we have.
Well, I think we would probably discourage it, but I'm not sure if we legally could do that. I mean, could we tell somebody we're not going to give you education because you don't want to come in person? I'm not sure we could legally do that. That being said, I'm not sure there would be a large amount of people that may change their mind because they're listening to the experts that have the data. I don't have that data. So if I don't have that data, I'm not going to make a decision. I'm going to revert back to them. So, and my idea of approving this plan was that unless we were moving to phase 3 or we were having staff issues, that we would remain open and that we would follow the experts and they were going to follow the data and the science that we don't have access to and make that determination. So I think we should remain, the teachers they move mountains just to get us open. I can't imagine 9 days, 10 days later saying, well, all that hard work you did, we're going to revert back. And I'm just not sure what's going to change between December 9th and now. And what may change is she may put us back to 3. And then we do have to go, but at this point, she has not made that. And the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has not made that determination.
Well, there are no phases anymore, Julie. I mean, the Republican legislature has made it clear that there are no phases. So
what I'm saying, okay, well, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services could create their own phase and say all remote learning, and they chose not to do that at this point.
Anyone else?
Yeah, you can go.
You go.
Okay. I don't know if I don't have anything prepared as eloquently as Chris might have had. But a lot of what he said, I agree with. It is alarming at the case rate that we have. And of course, when you look at Ingham County, an argument could be that it could be skewed because of what is happening in East Lansing. But when you look at the matrix and you click on our zip code, we are, what Chris said, higher than our surrounding neighbors. Now, I did, as everyone here, listen to the press conference last night. And what I heard was from experts pleading, stay home, do your part. And when I heard them talking about high school students stay home, I think that they're talking about students, of course, but we have to think about our students and our staff being in our buildings. And we've said that we can always go back to remote learning when we need to. We have proven that remote learning for the majority of our students is successful. And that is due to the outstanding teachers that have put in the numerous hours of getting that together, that platform. And this is really hard. We are not experts, like Julie said, we are not. But I can't ignore what is going on around us. And I think that we have the ability to say for the next 3 weeks, or until this order is lifted, that we should go back to remote learning. And I feel that that is something that we should consider.
I can't even imagine the amount of prep. I mean, just the thought of an elementary school teacher now being told you have to go back. I mean, the amount of prep that they have to do in advance is so great.
Let me say that I want to put this into context a little bit, because here's what concerns me greatly, is that the administration put a lot of time and effort into this plan. We spent a lot of time reviewing it and asking questions. And within the plan, it specifically addresses what would change, what would cause us to change. And it says we'll follow the health department and so on. And now, because there's this increase in cases, I feel like we're pushing Adam and the administration aside and saying, oh, we're changing our mind. We approved this plan, had the proper protocols in it, so that if things got bad for our district, you have the ability to go back virtual. But now you're saying, you know what? We changed our mind. We shouldn't approve that plan. Now we're saying that we want to direct it instead of give you the authority to make that decision based on your expertise. Because Adam right now, tomorrow morning, could make that call based on the health department, based on circumstances that actually where it's affecting Williamston. Right now, there are cases out there, it's not affecting us. And I could go into the whole argument of that, but right now I'm just more concerned about the message we're sending by approving a very complex plan. And then as soon as there's cases saying, you know what, we no longer trust your administration, we're going to step in to support it and say, you got to send it home. I don't like it. A lot of work went into the face-to-face. And it's, right now it's going well. It's critically important those kids are in school, face-to-face learning. And the fact, if you send them, if you make a decision now to send them home, what's going to change that you're going to bring them back? I tell you right now, if you do it, they're not coming back the rest of the school year. Because I don't know what would change, because nothing has happened here that would cause us to stray so much from the plan that we approved it for. So that's my concern. And if we don't approve this, we have no plan.
Mhm.
So.
All right, so back this trailer back a little bit. In June, Safe Start was announced. We as a board met, we talked about required, recommended as far as safety things. And everybody, the administration did a fantastic job going through that. We had presentations regarding the financials, how all that was going to work. We made different decisions. One thing that I was consistent in saying to our interim superintendent, I said it in board meetings that were via Zoom, my greatest concern was around the Thanksgiving holiday. And it wasn't a concern for the 16th of November. My concern was people get home from college. People congregate on Thanksgiving. Nobody knows what's going on in those different melting pots and where we were going to be 10 days later. Okay? So this plan that the government has put in front of us last night, the health department and the governor, is within that scenario. Do I think we need to be sending our kids home from school on Wednesday like they're saying with the high school? Absolutely not. Do I think we should have our kids that are at the elementary schools in class this week? Yes. But I do think it's kind of ironic when I look at the calendar, open up my phone, and they start talking about the scientific part. Because you go back to the messages that have been said by all the different doctors that are out there, Dr. Fauci, whoever. They say exposure, 7 days, whatever, and you start looking at the calendar and you say, wow, the health department just said the 18th, and that is 8 days before Thanksgiving. But people start getting together on the 25th, and the 25th is one of the biggest restaurant and bar nights, period, across the country. Always has been. There's something calculated within the dates and how they did everything. It's not the way that I was looking at it back this summer. But I do think that, I do think that having a pause right after Thanksgiving makes sense. But we don't have to say that all of our elementary school kids have to be out for 2 weeks, or not 2 weeks, but I do think that we're going to have some additional exposures and we're not going to know where people are. Okay? But knowing that this plan is here and knowing that that this plan is important to pass because it's what we've been doing, I don't know what kind of adjustments would have to be made because I don't like the message of saying, teachers, you just did all this work. Administrators, you just did all the work. We don't have any positive cases, yet we're going to say, you're going home. Okay? I don't like that message. Okay? But I do like the idea of you got your Thanksgiving holiday and possibly, having remote learning for a week because people are going to know if they're sick or not a week from that on the Monday if they were exposed either on Thanksgiving or, the craziest thing is they're not talking about closing Macy's and Best Buy the day after Thanksgiving, where all these people go to buy Black Friday sales. Okay. But they're talking about the kids in the schools. So I don't know. There's a lot of mixed messages there. But I don't want to blow up a plan that was in place. But I do think we need to think about some potential additional precautions that we maybe take. But again, I think our administration should figure out how that's going to best work with what they're seeing. But I think that we're hearing board members that are not comfortable, and knowing that we have board members that are not comfortable, and we know that there's 2 board members that are not here, should we be having a remote Zoom meeting where they could be, and we could all have a discussion on this? Because, to me, it sounds like if we were to vote, we don't have a board majority, and we have to have a board majority of 4 votes, positive votes, in order to pass this. So mine would be to maybe set a meeting up in a couple days. We got until the 30th, but I would say the next couple days, sometime this week, have a meeting of all board members via Zoom to, I'm assuming at least one of our board members probably because is hearing this. I don't know if both would be because they're in different areas. But that we could discuss this together. Maybe Adam could take into some of the concerns that have been brought here and try to come up with something that might be to everyone's liking.
I don't disagree with that as a potential, solution. I do want to circle back at a couple questions and just for clarity. I'm trying to figure out what within, and I don't think it was an order, it's a proclamation, what is being called from the health department, from the governor through the health department. Sarah, you indicated that you didn't think it was right, that you thought that over the next 3 weeks, as the order until the order is lifted. So you're aligning it with this proclamation or so on. But wasn't there specific questions asked to her during this? And the direct answers were that the reason it didn't address elementary is because they recognize the fact that very importance of them remaining face to face. So I'm a little confused how we're using what she came up with as a reason to send kids home when it was specifically even geared to make sure that we didn't do that. So is that, Julie?
I do, and I have the quote because I wrote it down. So, because I went back and listened to it. So, a reporter did ask if it was if K through 8 also should, being that teachers and, might have the same risk. And Whitmer said, in-person instruction is really important for younger students. We know that the way we have seen COVID spread happening in schools is more often in high school grades. High schoolers have more contacts per day, and thus this is why we see more spread in the older grades. You combine both of these factors in the fact that it's easier for older students to access distance learning and online learning. It became clear to us that these congregating older students was inherently more risky in terms of COVID spread than our younger grades. All of that being said, certainly the local districts still have it in their authority to make this policy change applicable to all ages, and that will have to be made at the local level. But these were the primary factors that went into the recommendations from experts to create this policy. And then Dr. J came up and said, as discussed in my remarks, if you look at all 2,000 K through 12 outbreaks that were investigated, just under 50%, 49 of those total outbreaks were actually in the high school settings. And if you look at the outbreaks and how many individual cases are actually associated with these outbreaks, it's far greater in the high school settings. So based on that fact, and the fact that there seems to be less spread, even when there's an outbreak in younger settings, there seems to be less spread. And we know that high school students also, it is easier for them to learn online. They may not need childcare for those reasons. We thought this was the best thing to do for the next 3 weeks. And I'm just going to add, we made a decision in August not to come back when the cases were lower towards the end of the summer. We could have had September, a full month of learning, possibly October, a full month of learning, possibly into November, and we chose to wait. And that may have been a benefit to us because we were able to see how everybody did it wrong, and we made a decision on how we thought we could do it right. So doing that elementary twice a day where we removed all the risk. So we removed the food, we removed the recess. So the contact was very limited. It's 2.5 hours of discipline learning for those students, and being able to do it so that we separated them. So we're looking at 10 to 12, it's a limited contact. It's easier to contact tracing. I think we've done the best thing for our district. So I think we've taken all the mitigation that we can to make sure that they're safe. And I'm just, like I said, I'm going to continue to agree with Whitmer and what they said.
Yeah. So I'm concerned that if we take action on this tonight and it's not approved, we're district.
So what are the consequences, Adam? For this?
Well, so we tried to scramble this afternoon to figure out exactly what that would be, and it's still somewhat inconclusive because there's a separate board action that approved the hybrid plan. So what we're bringing to you this evening is essentially the same plan you've already approved with 2 paragraphs in it that we added indicating the hybrid plan is in effect, which you had approved. So it was, and some respect, a rubber stamp because it was just a summary of what the board had already green lighted. So we're still trying to figure out exactly what the implications of not approving the plan are, because there's still a separate board action outside of the construct of this required state report that indicates for hybrid.
So here's a
It's a little
question.
complicated.
And then, let me just say that's where I was caught flat-footed this afternoon when I thought this was a rubber stamp reaffirming, pulling it together, what we had already spent a lot of time and all agreed on. So I was caught flat-footed when I found out that there was concern about affirming a decision we had made. However, but if there's all these questions, I don't want to force anybody to move forward and reaffirm something until we have clarity either on any of this. So I'm not opposed to tabling this, and as long as, we need to make a decision in the next few days, and we need to get any of those questions answered. And we also have to make sure everybody's comfortable that if this plan does contemplate and give authority to go remote, when we have a reason to go remote, and if there's specific concern around that weekend for Thanksgiving, let's talk about it. But right now, my concern is that we have something that came up from the governor that is completely not even addressing any of this, but we're using that as a reason to straighten from a plan putting in place. To me, it doesn't make sense based on that. I'm not saying that right, but if that makes sense. So,
Because on page 72 of board book, which is up there, these are the two paragraphs that we're talking about, correct? That are in red?
They're in red, yeah.
page 72, Judge?
Yeah, page 72 of board book. It's right behind you.
Yeah, no, it's easy.
I thought you had eyes behind you.
Those are additions to when the stuff in red, correct me if I'm wrong, are additions to what we've done the past 30 days that are different from when we affirmed this to begin with.
Right, so the first time this was approved, the hybrid piece had not yet been approved, so it was a full remote plan. And so after the board approved the hybrid model, we adjusted this plan for this month to indicate what the board had previously approved. So there's nothing new in it in terms of how this gets implemented. We just were looking to make sure we summarized accurately for folks who might read this online, that it's reflective of what the current board action is, the standing board action, I should say.
So no matter what, with what the governor's done, we've said that we're not going to have high schoolers in because that's what the governor said last night. The governor did not say that we wouldn't have middle schoolers in. Because technically you could put middle schoolers in.
We could,
Okay.
absolutely. The only thing that addressed with high schoolers, it actually allows us to bring, it specifically even says K through 8th grade,
Right.
the importance to be in school. So,
But to be clear, that is up to each district's discretion. Whether or not we have students at face-to-face is up to each district's discretion.
Absolutely.
What Julie just
Yeah, I'm just saying, my thing is, I don't have the data to make that determination. I refer to the experts with that. So that's where, I was just saying, as a board member, I don't think I would ever contradict what the
And what do you
Michigan
think, Jeff?
Department of Health and Human Services advises us to do. And at this point, they're saying we should still be in school at the elementary and middle school grade level.
But
As I said, I don't know what I don't know. So they have those data. I don't have access to it.
But we've chosen as a board and as a school system to not have our middle schoolers in school at this particular time. So to me, high schoolers and middle schoolers should probably be considered the same because that's how we've been doing it all year. I mean, they're the same plan. Everything's the same.
well, I think, correct, Adam, my understanding was when we go back face-to-face, the plan is the same. But I don't know if we were ever planning on pulling the trigger at the same date.
No, but I'm saying right now, because the
Right.
governor's considering and the health department's considering high schoolers, okay? I think that we've all been there, okay? All right, maybe not the 6th graders, maybe the 6th graders are more like the 5th graders, okay? But the 7th and 8th graders, those 8th graders are more like the freshmen, okay? As far as how they act, how our schools interact, teachers going from back and forth between the buildings, 6 hours of different classes moving from here to here, but granted, we're doing 3 in a day, but still, it's the same thing. The motions are the same. So if they're saying high schoolers shouldn't be in, then I'm saying the same thing goes with middle schoolers during this 3-week period, okay? The elementary school, my personal belief, and has been, it's just that week after Thanksgiving has been my concern. Okay, it's been a concern of mine for months.
Well, you should have the same concern then for Christmas, because that's going to be right on us in New Year's.
But see, you got Christmas, then you have New Year's, and you know what? There's so many things that are going to happen. Who knows? But Christmas is when everybody gets together, and granted, people get together for New Year's. There aren't going to be New Year's Day bowl games. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, we don't know. But that's way too far down the line. What we're dealing with is the next 3 weeks. So I don't know how you two feel, okay? But, you know, this plan and what is written right there isn't talking about what the governor decided last night, okay? It's not what the governor decided last night. So I think that this plan is what we've said is our education plan, and I think this is something that we should be approving, okay? But I do think that we as a board, if the 7 of us all get together, I think we're probably looking at, you know, there's some concerns of having kids in school right now, especially around the holidays. To me, we haven't had anything. We've been doing fine. But once Thanksgiving hits, I think if we take a pause for a week, I don't know if that will make you guys feel more comfortable or not. But, I mean,
It's,
but this is what.
if we're all doing what she asked us to do over the next 3 weeks, then we shouldn't have an issue, right? The restaurants are closed, the bars are closed, there's not gonna be any Wednesday before Thanksgiving. You know, craziness. My son's at, you know, I feel like it kind of made it worse because now my son wants to come home from college and I'm saying, no, stay, even though you're online for 3 weeks, please stay where you're at, don't come home. So, you know, I think a lot of the stuff that they're doing is trying to mitigate your fear. And, you know, let's hope that, you know, that is what the mitigation is.
So can I ask a question about the fear? I want to ask a question about the fear of Thanksgiving, Christmas, all that. Are you worried about the kids giving it to the staff? Or are you worried about the kids? Where's the concern?
My concern is with staff. Quite honestly, kids seem to be able to recover from this. Okay, I know way too many situations of either death or disability from this thing, and you know, kids are resilient. Yeah, the numbers. You hear of a kid here. I mean, across the country, you're not hearing these. And from what I have heard, listening to the experts, listening to people who track data, not always just the medical data, but you hear Mark Ewell talking about MHSA, the fact that there hasn't been the transmission amongst teams, that they've had 95, 96% of teams that have been able to play, and you know, all these things have been pulled away, but the data did not support that. It's a fear factor, is what I'm saying.
So the reason I ask the question is because it is very important to look at the science and the experts, and I've done, you know, everything for this age group says that if these kids get it, it's a runny nose and a little bit of a sore throat, and you know that the common flu is more dangerous and more contagious from that than COVID in this group. Now, having said that, there's also studies that say that they're not spreaders. I don't know about that. I worry for the same thing. My concern is for potential staff, but we're just not seeing it. We're not seeing it at that age group. So,
Well, you'd have to have a staff actually go to a big Thanksgiving to get it to bring it back. Yeah.
Adam, are you comfortable that the current plan has built into it the ability for us to keep our staff and our students safe when we get to?
I think the mitigation measures we have at the elementary school have been successful thus far, but obviously I can't predict the future. I mean, obviously nobody can in this circumstance. So as I sit here right now, based on my current knowledge of where things stand, they've been effective. But again, there could have been things that have already happened that I don't know about that could cause that to change rather quickly.
So what I've seen, paying attention, probably not as much attention as Chris because of what he does for a living with the data and seeing everything. And I thought you spoke very well. I mean, with everything that you threw out there, I mean, Mason, did decide that they're out until what, the 6th, 7th, whatever it is of June, January, when, they decided that they had a couple schools that shut down for a little bit. They had some classrooms shut down. They delayed. I mean, everybody's been trying to get going, and it's really kind of been, at the ISOA level, when we talk about where the schools are and what's happening, it's been, okay, well, Mason's getting ready. Where are you guys, Williamston, right? I mean, it's, and we all want kids in the building, and we're doing it the way we're doing it. But we're also now seeing people who put a lot of people in the buildings, them starting to scale back. And our plan isn't we don't have kids in the building all day long. Everything is short term, short bursts, what have you. I do think that as long as we know that, if we have positive cases with staff, we are going to have an issue just because of
So let me
getting people in.
Let me ask this question, because Thanksgiving, if I'm right, Thanksgiving is the 26th, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so we're off, I assume that Thursday, Friday, so
We're up the 25th, actually, so.
the first day back would be the 30th. So we're one day.
First day back would be the 28th, wouldn't it?
No, the
Oh,
first
I'm
day
looking at
back,
December.
first day
Sorry.
back would be the 30th.
30.
Yeah.
And then it's December 1st.
And what I would say is we get back on the 7th.
So are we comfortable what we're doing tonight is reaffirming this with and then we're gonna have to discuss it again beyond that. So
And
the
I think he
concern-
needs to be much more involved in this because we just went through the snow day protocol and what we have to meet at the end of the year about being able to say, did we teach the curriculum effectively? So if we, give another week off of school, I'm assuming that week off of school is not going to be virtual because I don't see us asking teachers that are in person right now, create a whole curriculum for a week.
My point is we're getting ahead of ourselves. Is everybody comfortable right now reaffirming the plan for the month of November? And then we can spend November talking about the concern about Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we've got some time to talk about that, but at least right now we stay status quo for the month of November, recognizing that we haven't seen any evidence that has affected our district to the point where we should be straying from it.
Well, that includes that Monday, so I guess that would be up.
What's
I'm
that?
fine. That would include that Monday, November 30th.
Okay.
One day.
Let's carve out that one day.
I'd be good with that and take December as it's separate.
Chris, you're deep in thought.
Well, maybe I'll speak and then maybe you can. So, respectfully, what was said at the beginning where it was said that if we choose to go back to remote learning, then we're never going to go back the rest of the school year. I think that is very far reaching. That's not the intent of what I said. I said that I feel that we should be remote the time that the order is in place. And from what Jeff said, I could agree to next Monday, let them finish up this week and then starting Monday until December 8th or this order is lifted.
How does the order affect us?
Well, I think we also need to be really careful in how we say that this hasn't affected us because we have had cases. And to say that we haven't is not true. We have had cases of both staff and students.
Never said we have.
I do believe it was said, so I just wanted that to be
Oh.
cleared. Respectfully. And Chris, do you want to say anything else? Okay.
No, I agree with you, Sarah. I mean, what I wrote down and what I read was that I felt like we should be following the guidelines and doing our part to stem the tide and the rising of cases. You know, we've got the holiday coming in. We've got there's a 2-week period afterwards that they say 14 days for gestation of the virus itself. I think that we need to be cautious and with other districts doing the exact opposite of what we're doing. Again, what makes us different when every district around us has gone remote? What makes us different when our cases are higher than those districts?
But they're not.
But
I didn't look on the
but not our
website.
student
Not-
cases.
They're not, we're all the same, actually. I just printed it out today, so they probably changed. We're actually lower.
Decision based on information, not following what the district is doing. I don't know what any decisions they make. I think we're gonna have to table this because if we vote it down, we're a district without a plan. We can't be a district without a plan. So we're gonna have to table it and talk about if now we're revising our plan, we have to have a revised plan to approve at the same time we don't approve the plan we have.
Yep.
So.
Hey, can I say something?
Adam,
Otherwise.
really turn
No.
to say something.
Just two pieces I guess I just wanted to bring up. One is at the elementary level, the ability to move a student from in-person learning to remote right now is very challenging. We're looking at some technology pieces that we can use to help stream the student into the classroom. But those are a work in progress. And the concern is that if we start moving students out of their current placement into a full remote classroom, which are already over their class size limits in most cases, what happens when we go back? Does that student then move back into their first? I mean, there's going to be I'm very concerned about having to continue to reshuffle the class rosters. That's very difficult for everybody. So that's just one piece I want to. I mean, we're trying. I mean, we are trying, and we're experimenting with some different things, but it's a work in progress. I guess the other piece is, I mean, I'm just tossing this out here, but I guess one of my concerns is that if we table the meeting for November, by the time we get it scheduled and we have the meeting, which will probably be very lengthy, I don't know how much of the month will actually be left if we were to change course. And then we have December coming, on the 7th, right around the corner, where we're going to have to do this all over again. And I'm just curious if there was, again, it's an option, but if there was a willingness to compromise on the existing plan this evening in terms of, we've heard concerns about the holidays and there's also, of course, I think we need to consider the amount of time we provide both parents and staff. Obviously, if there's an emergency situation, there's nothing we can do about it. But if it's a deliberate decision to make sure they have appropriate time to prepare, find childcare, all those other pieces that they have to do. So I guess I'm just curious if there is a willingness on the board to kind of compromise around something we could all agree on to get us through until the next regular meeting in December, when again this is all up for reevaluation.
So compromise, let's say the kids stay in school through Friday or Tuesday next week, and then they're out.
Well, it's kind of out of my lane to make the decision. To make the proposal, but I've heard different members.
From a logistic standpoint,
We gotta give parents notice. We can't tell them, oh, your
Well,
kids aren't going to school on
That's what I'm
Wednesday.
saying.
Well,
But I've
can't
heard
do
that
that.
expressed that, do we look at, another week on and then, concerned about the holidays. So I'm just, if there's an ability to compromise tonight around the path forward to get us through until December 7th, when we meet again to go over the plan again, that I think that could save us a lot of time and then also provide some predictability for our parents and our staff.
And when I say post, I want to get 2 other board members in and have a decision by Thursday at the latest. So we would have, something, in place. Sarah, I need to correct something. I need to make sure you understand when I said, if we're gonna send them home now, what I mean is cases aren't gonna go. This virus isn't going anywhere. It's not gonna, so if we're gonna have cases now until the vaccine starts to get up and it makes a difference, which is gonna be second quarter next year at the earliest.
And the kids are gonna be the
So
last
if we're
ones to
not
get it.
willing to go with your other plan because there's cases, then you might as well say that we're not gonna be in school, because there's gonna be cases. It's just, there's nothing we can do to stop this thing.
And probably at the same level, because like Jeff said, there is gonna be holidays and there are gonna be people that don't follow the rules, and we're a big state.
Today, then I'm saying nothing's gonna change between now and the end of the year as far as the cases that are out there. Other than herd immunity is gonna, you might slow down because of that, but. So I don't know a compromise that could, I guess the compromise that I'm hearing is that they would just finish out the week and then we gotta send them home. And then possibly come back,
Yeah, it's out of my lane to,
Yeah.
it'd be out of order to make the motion. I'm just throwing it
Well,
out
I
there
don't
as
think
an
it is,
option.
because we look to the administration to come together with the plan in the first place, and we approve the plan. So now we're at a point where we've had board members that have a concern with the plan. And so I think it is a collaborative effort with coming up with a revised plan that people are comfortable with. So,
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, I feel like if we're going to make a compromise, then I want to know for the parents to have a thing, like what is, we need to put some parameters around. And if it's this many cases in Ingham County and we're not going to school, then that's what it is. I mean, it would be unfair to, I think, working families and families where they feel they need to have their children in school to say, we're just gonna not go to school now. And then, as you were saying, Scott, I believe the reality of this is our cases are probably gonna be the same as far as level, if not more, by December 10th. And then for us to say, okay, we can come back to school now. I would rather than say, we're gonna make a decision on how many cases and create some real parameters. And then that's what makes our decision, and not just, I'm concerned with this parents or with the teachers, creating the teachers that were in person going back online. I think that there was a lot of teachers that were relieved, because I think especially at the elementary, their workload was so much more with online classes. So putting them back after they just moved, I'm, concerned about that. But if I'm going to compromise, I don't have a problem, but I want some parameters so that we're not going to be here in December 10th or December 15th. And we have some better idea of where we're going.
So here's what I'm thinking. If we send the kids to school the rest of this week, and we basically, for what would be 2 full weeks, which includes the time that you have for Thanksgiving, we're regrouping, we're refiguring this thing out on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday after Thanksgiving. And maybe we have a special meeting where we discuss, but the kids are home. With the plan that the elementary school kids are back in class on the 7th. And then obviously we're going to meet on the 7th. But if we figure out something during that week that we're not, they threw out 3 weeks, okay? It could be 4 weeks. It could be 5 weeks. It could be, we're not going to know, because we can't predict the future. Can't predict the stock market, can't predict the future, okay? We just can't, all right? We have no idea what's going to happen with cases. Health department say, school's out through the end of 2020. We don't know. But what we can do is look at the next 3 weeks, knowing what the government has said, and figure a date, keep the kids in school this week, regroup, think about it, look at the data. I'm sure there's going to be conversations with the health department, and then will it be the 7th? Parents know that it's the 7th, but we may, during that week after Thanksgiving, decide that it needs to be longer than that. We may see stuff. We don't know. We don't know what the news is going to say tomorrow morning. We don't know what the news is going to say on Friday. So
We don't know what's going to be on the news tomorrow.
Correct. You don't know what's going to be on the news in 5 minutes.
No, I am.
So I'm just saying, we just don't know. So if we just take a pause and let the kids finish the week.
Well, if we're gonna
Get us
compromise,
through.
I wanna go to at least Thanksgiving. And go to the 25th and have them go this week. I mean, I agree. I mean, I agree what you're saying about Thanksgiving. Although the only way we can make sure that our kids stay safe is if our families in our area choose to do what the governor asked for them to do on Thanksgiving, and that's to have your Thanksgiving with your immediate family. Okay, then we're all still in our circle. So,
But we know people aren't going to do that.
well, I understand that, but those are the same people
Right.
that, you know, I mean, I can't help anything, but I can't make decisions for people that don't want to follow. But I mean, when you're saying we can't predict the news, I think we can all look and say we can predict that the COVID cases aren't going to be lower in 2 weeks. As it does get colder, we're all pushing inside. We're going to have the likelihood that it's lower. So if that's the case, we really need to look at ourselves and say, what are we going to do on December 9th? What do we tell parents that says we did this and the cases aren't lower? Do we continue that course? And so that's, you know, if I'm compromising, that's what I'm looking at. I am under the assumption that I take personally as we have a gentleman here that was on the front line of COVID for almost 7 months. I mean, Adam was pulled away working. I mean, he had seen, heard, you know, so we have people that are experts in this. And I have every confidence that if Adam looked at us and said, I think we need to call it off for a little bit, that we would, and that he would give us. That's what we hire him to do. That's, you know, he has that expertise he's looking. So, you know, that's what our administration's for. So to me, I'm going to look at it that thankfully we're doing something good and we're doing it right. I mean, we waited. Some other schools are having problems because maybe they did it the wrong way. They started early. They went everywhere. So to me, the fact that we are having cases, but not outbreaks, you know, Jeff had pointed out many times at other meetings that we are going to get cases in the fall. Don't be thinking that we're not going to get them. So to me, I want to look at it as more of we're doing something right, and let's continue the role until COVID really stops us from doing it. We lose staff that we can't, bus driver or something like that. You know, because the chances of Scott has said it, there's been lots of research. WILX did the story Adam provided to us that schools, especially younger, don't see the spreader. So if a teacher does, you know, get, or a bus driver, there's chances that they might have contracted it somewhere else. We have to look at we're all as a community doing. So we're all doing the best that we can. But if we choose not to go back to school, then we really need to look to whether we're going to go back to school at all. And we shouldn't use this 3-week period as an excuse, because we have parents and stakeholders that are really invested in our school and they need more time to make decisions on their family if we're wanting to push this past December 9th.
Yeah.
So one rationale I have, and this is just one rationale, for having next Monday and Tuesday off is so that gives our teachers an opportunity who are not teaching remote right now to prepare to move towards the remote option. So you said, Julie, that you would compromise to say starting next Wednesday, and I'm just saying.
We're already up next Wednesday.
Yeah, we're off.
Yes,
So
we are up
Tuesday's
next
last.
Monday. So what I'm saying is, if we agree to finish out the week, then Monday and Tuesday gives our staff an opportunity to make that switch. To go to remote. They can have those 2 days to prepare.
Which 2 days?
Well, they would be teaching remote.
They would be
They would be
teaching.
teaching remote, but they also have the opportunity to prepare. in advance.
And I would say that if we're going to, if I was going to compromise, I would want it to go till the 9th so that we have the 2 weeks. Because I want the 14 days to go. I mean, the governor's plan goes until the 18th. I'm not saying that we have to stay until the 18th, but I want at least 2 weeks. So if that's,
if we went
if
to the
that's
9th,
agreeable,
So if
then,
we went the 25th, we don't have school the 25th anyways. And then we would not have school the 7th and the 8th, we would be coming back on the 9th.
Mhm. Sarah? Would you be amenable to that?
I'm thinking, I'm not opposed to it, but I think that we should have a meeting within that timeframe
Yes.
to reevaluate.
So another meeting within that to see if we come back on the 9th?
No, I think that if data, supported data comes in front of us, that we would need to extend because the governor says you need to extend, or something comes out, you have a meeting. I don't think you just have a meeting to have a meeting.
But I thought we already covered that earlier when we talked about giving Adam.
We have to reaffirm on the 9th and the 7th. So we're gonna have a meeting on the 7th. So if we're out the 25th, because we're already out the 25th, it's already a day that we're not in school, through the 9th, coming back the 9th, through the 8th, we're meeting on the 7th anyways.
And so we're going to vote again to whether or not we come back on the 9th.
No,
No.
we have to meet, that's the only meeting we have
Well, I know,
scheduled in
yeah, we have a
December, and we
meeting,
have
but
to
you
affirm
said
the
that we would
plan
come
on the
back.
7th, correct? Isn't that the plan? Do we have a meeting on, we don't have a meeting on the 21st.
No, we're meeting on the 7th.
The
So the
only
7th
meeting in
are only
December
meeting.
is the 7th, and
So
we'll
that's
have to
what-
reaffirm this plan again.
For
that
December.
month.
Right, for
So we have to do
December.
this whole thing
Have
all
to do
over
this
again.
all over again
Yes.
anyway.
So we have to meet on the 7th no matter what.
To do this whole thing all
So
over
that's why I
again.
think the 20,
And then every month,
And then every month.
the rest of the year.
correct. So the
So what are we going to do on the 7th? And the cases are the same and the governor has not extended it.
then the plan is.
I want us to have some insurances because right now the governor says we shouldn't be back, we should be back in school
Then we're
for
gonna-
that, for those grade levels. And we're going against the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So what happens on the 7th that the cases are the same?
Right.
She actually said that it was up to the district. She did not say.
Well, that is, I mean,
No.
we're America, so we all, I mean, our local
Yeah.
district does have power and control, so it's always been up to us. But I'm just saying, I mean, I want to, I mean, I feel like you're asking us to make assurances that I'm not sure what an argument I'm going to have on the 7th of trying to get back into school if we chose not to go back to school, even though we didn't have a state order to stay at home, and the cases are the same or higher.
Which is why I don't want to put words in somebody's mouth, but that might be why you may have said, we may not be coming back. If we make, I mean.
Well, I'm glad you're admitting it, Jeff, that you're saying that, yeah, if we go home, we probably won't be back this year.
If we don't have some assurances that if, I mean, because we have no idea how long that they're gonna hold this thing. It goes to the 9th right now. We don't,
But I mean,
No, it goes to
Through
the
the
18th. It goes to the 18th, actually.
There's a reason it only took.
right.
and there's a reason economically, health, I mean, it's against my better nature because I don't think it's a good thing for our families. I think the economic impact of our families to have their kids home for the rest of the year is going to be enormous. And that is an impact that the governor's office and the executive makes in determining the decisions that they make. They stated it in their answer. It's easier for parents to not have to get daycare for their teens. It's not so easy to flip the switch at this elementary level. And it is a huge impact. And I think we're missing all of that impact to our community members. And so when I say I don't want to make the decision because I don't have the data, I don't want to put a family into bankruptcy or put a family where they have to quit a job because their kids can't go to school when I didn't have the data, and the data could be showing that, as they said, they're not at risk at that younger learning.
So can I get something clarified? When we say to the end of the school year, are we talking about the end of the school year or the end of the calendar year? 'Cause I think those are two big distinctions.
Well, I don't really would know what any difference is, because if we're talking about cases in general, and if the Michigan Department of Health, I mean, I'm just going to take it on a small scale. If we had 6,000 cases in the state and we're not going to school now, and if the 7th came and we had 6,500 and the mandate wasn't to cancel school, I don't see how we still don't make the decision not to go to school because the cases are the same. And then if we come back on January 7th and the cases are 6,500 and the state still doesn't have us mandated, how do we say, yes, we're going to come back now? So that, to me, until we get into the spring, I don't know. I mean, I'm just looking at a reality of cases, and we've seen, you know, as the weather progresses to get colder and everybody moves farther inside, or until there's a vaccine. So that's where I'm saying is just on a level, if we're not following state protocol and we're doing our own thing, then our own thing is probably going to be dictating for us farther than the end of the year and probably into next year.
So if we look at our county, Weberville wasn't in today, correct? Throughout their whole school.
They took a 1-day pause today.
1 day of pause. Dansville has their younger learners in, spread across 2 buildings. Mason has just determined that they're out through the end of this calendar year. So that's our county in a nutshell, right? I don't know, where is Stockbridge and Leslie? I don't know where they're.
Leslie's out.
Leslie's out,
Yeah, Colt's out.
Okay.
Lansing's out.
so
East Lansing's
When
out.
did Leslie announce that? When did Leslie announce that?
It was on their website when I looked today. I don't know when they announced it, but they said that they were. Dansville's still in. I think Stockbridge is still
I
in
think Stockbridge is too.
at the elementary level.
I think Perry,
That's out of county though.
So,
well, but we get a lot of our
so,
kids.
so to me, we need to vote for this plan for November, knowing if everybody's in agreement that, you know, we're out until, let's just say, through the 8th. And on the 7th, we're going to meet, and I'm sure there's a lot of work that's going to be done by our administrative team that week of after Thanksgiving. And we'll have a lot of data that will be probably handed to us in piecemeal because that's, you know, every day is a different day. And then we make a decision to have the kids back in school on the 9th at the younger levels.
Point of clarification. What are we affirming?
November,
November,
that's it.
right?
Which is what we're doing right now, which is how we're teaching our kids right now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more days.
Correct.
So we can't get a plan reaffirmed for 6 more days.
No, I think we can. I think we should.
No, you just said that we wouldn't because we'd be out this week. It would take us through the end of November.
No, this takes us,
With the exception of the 1 day after Thanksgiving. I would trade with the board to reaffirm this plan through the 24th, next Tuesday. And then we have time to regroup and make sure we have the plan in place for Thanksgiving, that we agree as a board. Because we can't spring this on parents that tomorrow they're staying home. And if we tell them next Monday, then we're saved 2 days. I mean, we're off Tuesday, we're off Tuesday or is Tuesday?
We're off Wednesday.
25th, the last day?
No,
No, 24th is.
24th is.
Scott, I already said, the compromise that I offered was that we would affirm to the 25th,
Right.
that we would take a 2-week break.
2-week break
That
after
is
that.
what I
that's
already
you're
said.
saying. So we would be in school this
And
week.
if
we'd be
everybody's
in
able
school
to it,
Monday and
I would
Tuesday.
vote yes for that. I don't know if, I can't speak for Sarah. But
And with
if,
that said, we would have 4 votes.
and then we would go until, we would be back on, we would be reevaluating on the 7th on whether or not we were coming back on the 9th to reaffirm the plan for December.
I would rather see us work in between now and then to find out if we need to take things off or not.
Now, well, that is the compromise I'm offering.
Yeah,
I am not willing to say yes if I do not have some guarantee that there's going to be that 2-week break. My foot is down, and I'm not going to vote yes.
What's in front of us is reaffirming the plan for November.
I've told you what I need.
So Scott, Adam said compromise. To me, and he doesn't want to get involved in that discussion because it's not his lane. Okay, but he said compromise. To me, the compromise is we stay in to school until the break. We take 2 weeks off, which gets us through the 8th of December. We're meeting on the 7th. On the 7th, we have to reaffirm our plan for the month of December. We're going to have a bunch of information we're going to be given during that week that starts on the 30th. I think we're good to get this plan approved. And then on,
So we're taking 2 weeks off in December. We're deciding that now.
We're taking off
We have
1
no
week.
reason to do that. And so if we come back, so is the 7th, are the kids in or remote or in class?
No.
Remote.
We would
The remote, the
until the
7th.
9th.
and the 8th, just as the health department said for the high school level students. And then we would have kids back in the buildings on the 9th.
You can't say that because it's
can't
up
say
for
for sure.
discussion again on the 7th.
Pardon?
It's up for discussion again
It's
on the
up for
7th. And
discuss-
if,
right.
and everything stays the same, why would you vote to go back to school?
Yeah, nothing's gonna change the cases between now and then, so.
That's my question. If you know, that's the whole nit here. I'm not going to compromise because I don't see a reason that you will allow it to come back, right? So that's why I said, if I'm going to compromise and say, then I want an assurance of what's going to get us back here. I can't say the insurance would be as long as the Department of Health and Human Services says it's okay to be in school, because they already are saying it's okay to be in school. We're choosing to say that we choose not to follow that. So under that instance, I don't know what's going to change on the 7th, and I don't want to be the one sitting here giving the compromise just to come back on the 7th and say, well, nothing's changed. Let's revisit it on January 4th. Or, you know, we're going to be in the same position we were with Christmas.
We're making a motion to alter the plan for
Month of November.
the last day of November. So right now we would be making a motion to strike from the plan for one day in November. And to strike from the plan for until the 9th.
Through the 8th.
Right, through the 8th until the 9th. So, and the plan, right, without changing, the plan indicates the 9th we would be back in class. So I would look at it the other way, in that it would require a strength from the plan not to do that. Does that make sense?
But
We're making a decision to stray from the plan because there's cases out there. We knew there were going to be cases. There's going to be cases. So I don't see what's going to change to why you're going to agree to have kids face to face, because there's going to be cases.
Here's
and I think we should table it, and I think we should have another, because I do think it's important enough to have community input. I think the fact that there's nobody here probably doesn't think that the community thought we could be voting tonight to not have their kids back. So I think we should have a board meeting in which we are allowed to have community input on what they
Here's
feel.
the reality, okay? I'm going to predict something, okay? If we don't come up with a compromise, it could be very easily be 4-3 and we don't have a plan.
Well,
If we
that could be,
get
Jeff.
7 people together.
And that could be, but what
So-
you're asking for is a compromise to me. I don't see a way back this year. And the fact that you're willing to not even recognize that that's a possibility is what is bothersome to me. I can't honestly look at parents and people that want their kids to be in school and say yes to this, knowing that I truly, deep inside of every bone, don't think there's going to be any different between the cases between now and November 9th or December 7th when we're back here. So to me, I feel like I just put our teachers and our community holders in this position where the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services says, if you're following the plan, you can stay in school with those younger learners.
But let's think.
But
about what
we're going to
they're
send
saying.
you back on the 9th, and we're okay with that.
Right. and
I think
they're
that's
talking
totally
about the
hypocritical. So either
whole
you're
state
going
of
to.
Michigan. That's the other thing. Got to remember, they're talking about the whole state of Michigan. That's the whole state. They're not talking about.
Well, that's what
our
I said.
specifics.
Why don't you say right now tonight that if our cases are exceeding this, we're not going to come back? Because that's what I would prefer to have, is something a little bit more hardwired, and that is a decision that you guys make so that there is a standard that we know.
Well, that
So
would,
if we don't want
would make
cases to
sense.
exceed this per this Ingham County
We
1690,
tied it to something.
Correct.
we tied it to
We
state
tied it to
requirements.
something, and that has not, and now we're calling, now that we're asking to change the plan, when what we tied it to is still we should be in class.
Yeah, we tied it to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and whether or not the state is allowing us to be. That's what we tied it to. If we're going to go back on that and have it fluctuating, then I need to set parameters. I need to have something set. I think our community members need to have something set. Our single mothers need to have something set. Our two people working households need to
I
have
don't
something
disagree with
set.
you. I don't disagree with you.
But
Yeah,
you're
we
not
can-
willing to give us anything like that. You're just willing to say, we're just going to go, not come back to school until
I
the
didn't-
9th.
I didn't
And
say
on the
anything other
7th,
than
we're going to
the fact that-
vote to come back to school even though we
Julie,
don't have any parameters
You
on it.
just put words in my mouth. I did not say that. What I said is that we take a 2-week break. That's all I said.
And I
We're gonna
said,
meet-
what makes you going to want to vote to come back in 2 weeks if the numbers are the same or higher?
Because my whole thing has been about Thanksgiving and the holiday. I've been saying it, and I said it earlier today. Since July, I've been saying it. Since August, I've been saying it. I've said it in multiple meetings. I can't tell you how many times I probably told Kelly Campbell it. She said, that makes some sense.
And
Okay?
so does
All
Christmas,
right.
and that's what I said. So we're going to be in the same position.
And that may be the case, but the difference is right now you're having a bunch of kids that are going to be coming back from colleges. Those kids are going to be back. They're not going back. If they leave their schools, they're staying, okay? It's a whole different dynamic. So, do I want the kids back in school on the 9th? Yes, I do. My whole thing has been on that. That's where my thought process is, and that's why I'm saying we need to compromise on that. Do I think we need to have the younger kids back in school on the 9th? Absolutely. So parameters. We don't know where things are, and you can, gosh, I could be like one of the big old politicians that's on the news because we're being, mark my words. Okay, on the 9th, I want kids back in the school.
No, but our parameters before were easy to say, we let the experts guide us. That was our parameters because we all agreed, I assumed we all agreed that we do not have the data at our fingertips and we're not experts in reading and deciphering that data. And so that's where I thought our plan was tied to that. And our plan isn't tied to that, which is disappointing because I thought it was. And so now we're here 2 weeks after we went to school, just talking about it all over again. This should have been decided well before that it could have been fluctuated and not tied, and, we'll have to better
How
have my,
difficult, Adam, how difficult is it logistically with regard to notice and planning for staff? And of course, families, you can't answer that. We have to take that into account. If we don't have a decision tonight, what we do by the end of the night.
I guess I just question the, we're whittling away the number of days of instruction we have left in November for every day we continue to push out the decision, so it's creating indecision within the system. And then
Well, we're
increasingly,
going to have in person up until the 24th.
well, currently, yes, because you haven't not approved or disapproved this plan
Right.
at that point. But it's going to create a lot of uncertainty over the next week in terms of what's going to happen. And I guess that's what I'm trying to avoid by suggesting a compromise, if there is one. to be
Well,
had.
my compromise would be that if we agreed we're face to face through the 24th, the 25th we take off for Thanksgiving, we extend Thanksgiving break, but without further action, we are face to face on the 9th. Take further action to keep us out.
That to me
It would take
makes
further
sense.
discussion.
It would take, yeah.
To keep it past the.
Right. And the motion that we would put with this is that it would take further action from the board for us to stay out for any longer than the 8th.
well, we would have to do that on the 7th anyways, because December plan is up for, so that would already be there.
We'll revisit this on the 7th either way.
Yep. So the motion would be that we remain face to face through the 24th. We take off the 25th for Thanksgiving. Basically, Thanksgiving break is extended through the 8th. And we will come back without further action. We'll be back on the 19th. We may come together on the 7th and decide that there are compelling reasons to extend it. But I'm not willing to, based on what we know today, to extend it.
Sarah, your thoughts?
Well, I just wish that, I mean, after Wednesday, we're not able to meet in person. And it's unfortunate that this wasn't made available to some board members who could not attend, because I think that that would be, I would like to hear from them and their thought process. And when it comes to education, the MEA did say that they felt that this, these orders weren't strong enough. And they thought that this order should include elementary schools.
You're talking about the MEA, so you're talking about the Union of the
The
Teachers.
Michigan Education Association.
Okay.
Correct.
We're not talking about the Michigan Department of Education or the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. We're talking about
The
the
MEA.
union that represents the teachers.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're talking bargaining. That's done at the Finance Committee.
Which is why I don't feel like we read back on the 9th.
Okay. Took me a while, Julie. I'm sorry.
If there's, let's say, if there's compelling reasons that develop between now and the 7th, then at the 7th, we'll say, you know what, it doesn't make sense to come back to the right now, but we make the motion that we reaffirm the plan through the 24th, we extend Thanksgiving break through the 8th, and then we'll have an opportunity on the 7th to validate that we all agree that it's for them to, you know, if there's a reason to keep them out beyond the 8th.
And I guess I'll just, can I talk or am I still
Yeah,
out of order? I mean, I would, again, it's not my lane to determine what the compromise is, but it's creating certainty in the system is a positive for all involved, especially as we're ending the end of the month here, nearing the end of the month. And it's a pragmatic solution to a problem that I know there's obviously clearly different opinions on, but it does create predictability for our stakeholders, community members.
You're saying that plan does create.
Any compromise, whatever that ends up being, provides certainty and predictability and allows for teachers, parents to plan. Obviously, there'll be different opinions on whether they agreed with the decision or not, but at least they'll have a tangible plan that they can prepare for. And I guess that's just to reiterate, that's been kind of my concern, is just continuing the uncertainty, and it creates a lot of challenges on everybody.
I think it's a good compromise. I think even if you're not going to send home tomorrow, people need time to prepare for it. So we're keeping them through one more week, Tuesday to Tuesday. We're giving extended, and that's going to give us another 3 weeks for more information to roll into us to make an educated decision
On the 7th.
on the 7th. As that goes, I think that makes sense, and I would like to be a motion.
I'll make a motion that we recess on the 24th, from the 25th through the 8th, have an extended Thanksgiving, not in school time. And then we will reconvene here on December 7th to certify our plan for.
The intent is they'll face-to-face resumes on the 9th.
Right.
We will revisit that.
On the 7th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so I have a motion that we will be face-to-face through the 24th, Thanksgiving break starts the 25th, we're gonna extend it through the 8th. We will resume face-to-face on the 9th. Oh, yes,
I'm point of clarification, I know I'm Thanksgiving break. I don't think we can use those two words. That is a vacation.
Right. So
Remote learning.
remote learning,
thank you,
remote learning.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're not extending the break, sorry.
No,
Thank
remote
you
remote
very
learning.
much. Thank you. That is a fine point of clarification.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So the remote learning will start when face-to-face would have resumed after Thanksgiving break. Thank you. And then face-to-face will resume on the 9th, but we will, again, we have a meeting on the 7th too, where we reaffirm what's gonna happen in this office.
Can I modify the wording a little bit, and you can tell me out of order, you can say no, but
I'm all ears.
pending board approval on December 7th, or face-to-face back on December 9th.
Yeah, I'll remove my second then. 'cause I don't-
That goes, that's exactly what we did. We want,
Yeah,
it's gonna require board approval not to come back. The 7th will be visiting it, making sure that we still feel it's safe. If we feel on the 7th it's not safe, then we'll extend it. But if, in the absence of an action, we come back. So
There's still, Sarah, what he's saying is that there's still an opportunity that if for some reason we feel as a board that there is concern to not come back on the 9th, that on the 7th, the board can make action to adjust the plan at that point.
correct.
But that if the board does not take action, that the December, that they will, that in-person learning would continue, would start back up on the 9th. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's still an opportunity for further discussion on the 7th.
Yes.
To revisit where we're at as a community.
Any other clarification or question or discussion? Okay, motion by Jeff, second by Julie. I'd like to ask for a roll call.
Just a second. Julie,
no,
Jeff,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Sarah is, yes, Scott,
Yes.
motion carried 4-1.
Okay. Does that give you?
Yeah, we'll clean up
Yes.
the wording and, I mean, I think we're all on the same page, but make sure this gets communicated
Okay.
out to everybody tomorrow so that there's clarity.
We would have, the education resumes on the 30th, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Next, then, under separate action items, is awarding the title of Deputy Superintendent to Kelly Campbell. I would entertain a motion.
So
I want to, sorry.
Oh, yes.
So I want to back up then. Does that vote also, I just want to make sure we're all clear. Does that vote then reaffirm our plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we're on the same page. All right, sorry. Just want to make
No,
sure.
no, don't
We
apologize.
gotta send the report in tomorrow, so I
It
want
was
to
a
make sure
long
that we're clear on that. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
It reaffirmed the plan with the modification. of-
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. To the count, yes,
Yes,
got
the
it.
calendar.
Got it.
Yes.
Got that back there?
I got it.
Now I'll, okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
So
Second,
Second, did Chris, sorry, did you say second?
second,
Okay. Motion, Jeff, second by Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Congratulations, Kelly.
Yeah, congratulations, Kelly.
If you're watching,
She's still watching.
I would have turned it off a long time.
And then we entertain a motion to approve the revisions to board policies 2800, records, and 8015, non-discrimination section.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion by Chris, second by Jeff. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Motion carries. Next is approved changes and updates to the student handbook for Kids Corner, Little Hornets, Discover Elementary, Explorer Elementary, Middle School, High School, and Transportation.
Motion to approve.
Motion Chris,
Second.
second Julie. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And then we have the approval of the administrative COVID-19 statement.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve Chris,
Second.
second Julie. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then we have a roll call item to approve leave request for Elizabeth and Sharon. Do I have a motion?
You have a motion?
Second.
Motion Jeff, second Chris. Roll call, Sarah?
Is there any discussion? Did you ask,
Yeah, was there any
is
discussion?
there any discussion?
Is there any discussion? No.
Julie,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Sarah, yes, Scott,
Yes.
motion carried by
Motion
zero.
carries. Review of board goals, we're doing well. Stay tuned for revisions. Any correspondence? Needs to be discussed? Still figure out how to see it. Doesn't show it. That brings us to the second opportunity for citizens' comment.
59.
And having none, I will turn it over now, moving into board member reports.
I just want to say something. We thought last year that the stuff that went on and the unfortunate circumstances that happened with the class of 2020, what's happened since yesterday with what's going on with our kids and kids who have not been able to finish out so far, everything's on a pause. We have to be really mindful of the mindset on some of these kids and how they're feeling. Okay? They might not be saying anything to you. Parents, they may not be saying anything. I'm sure they're communicating amongst friends. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're totally internalizing this thing. This, for some of these boys, girls, is devastating. They didn't have a homecoming. They didn't have a homecoming parade. They haven't been in school. This has been devastating. So when you see people in our community, young people at the store, look at people in the eye. Just see, because everybody's got masks on. We don't know. People are suffering, and our youth are suffering. That's it.
There. Thank you. Anything else? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Julie, second. Chris, any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye.